friends, it's Mad About Animals Mags, your friendly neighborhood wood nymph slash animal welfare scientist, and I can say that officially because I now have a Master of Science degree. I feel very grateful to have been able to study alongside amazing people from all walks of life, but no matter what background my fellow classmates were coming from, there was only one question we all really wanted animal welfare science to answer. Should you kill John Wick's dog? When I was making my first video about the Cedar the goat debacle, I made a throwaway reference about John Wick and his dog in order to explain contractarian ethics. It's not necessarily inherently bad to kill a puppy, but it's bad to kill that puppy if it belongs to John Wick, and it's going to break our societal contract with John Wick and make John Wick sad. I thought about it and I was like, wait, that's actually a really great way to explain a whole bunch of viewpoints within the world of animal ethics perspectives. In case you haven't watched my Cedar the goat video, and you should, because first of all, this is YouTube, so I'm supposed to tell you things like that, but also I do genuinely think that whole situation was an interesting case study. The first thing we did in grad school was go to www.aedilemma.net to take a cute little personality quiz about the atrocities we perpetrate on non-human animals, which can help you take an introspective look at your own beliefs and sort out how you feel about important issues such as farming, laboratory animal testing, and whether or not you should kill John Wick's dog. So I'm going to be using the Animal Ethics Dilemma website definitions on 5 human ethical viewpoints on how we interact with animals. Some of these frameworks may overlap in certain situations, and your moral reasoning and ethical justification for your views may change on a case-by-case basis. This may seem a little abstract right now and may make more sense after you've heard what these ethical frameworks are, but I wanted to put it up front so that you'd have an understanding that most people's views aren't going to fit 100% into one ethical viewpoint 100% of the time. And what's cool about the AE Dilemma website, it actually shows you what percentage of your viewpoints align with different ethical frameworks, so you can kind of see which ones you have the most in common with and which you are less likely to use to justify your actions. Also, for simplicity's sake, I've been using and will continue to use the term animal and non-human animal interchangeably to mean the same thing. When it comes to scientific writing, I am firmly team non-human animal because it reinforces that, of course, humans are animals and all sentient species have more shared traits and experiences than we have differences. But for the sake of silly comedic YouTube video doing science communication, I'm gonna say animal for non-human animal and non-human animal when I feel like I need that clarification. Today, we're going to be looking at 5 ethical perspectives: utilitarian, animal rights, relational, respect for nature, and contractarian. I'm not saying that these are the only ethical perspectives or that these are the most ironclad definitions of them and that there's no room for interpretation, but these definitions are definitely the most what I was taught freshman year of school. So that's what we're going to be going with today. Let's rock. It's time to answer the question, should you kill John Wick's dog? Start with the utilitarian view of animal ethics. When looking at how we utilize animals, the utilitarian ethicist wants to make sure we are maximizing well-being for humans and animals alike. The utilitarian view would say that we shouldn't kill animals for no reason, just for the heck of it, and that when we are killing them with a purpose as a means to the end, their quality of life and death should be as good as possible and humane as possible, respectively. So killing animals for food, probably just fine from a utilitarian perspective, but intensive factory farming that results in poor welfare and quality of life for the farmed animals would be not ideal. So if John Wick's dog were livestock in an intensive farming situation, that wouldn't be cool from a utilitarian perspective. However, if we are going for strictly utilitarian ethics, if John Wick's dog were living in a free-range farming system with appropriate conspecifics, high-quality food, clean water, thermal comfort, and was slaughtered in a quick and as painless as possible way, that's probably fine from a utilitarian ethics perspective. If John Wick's dog were being used in a laboratory performing experiments on him to the end of, for example, cosmetics testing, then that would probably be pretty hard to justify for a utilitarian ethicist, unless, I don't know, they were just like a really, really fancy bitch who needed super high quality, better mascara than is already out there. I don't know. I still don't understand why we're still testing cosmetics on animals in the year of our Lord 2023. On the other hand, if John Wick's dog were being used in laboratory experiments with the end goal of finding a cure for a deadly disease where his suffering and death is going to contribute ultimately to the saving of millions and millions of human lives, then from a utilitarian ethics perspective, you can kill John Wick's dog. Out of all of these, I would say that the animal rights ethic is probably the most straightforward. Now, this is different than the animal rights movement or animal rights advocacy, which are all things I want to discuss in a separate video. The animal rights ethic is really well and very succinctly summed up by A.E. Dilemma, which says, good results cannot justify evil means. According to an animal rights ethic, animals themselves have inherent worth, value, and the right to live. They are not put here for our personal use. It doesn't matter if experimentation on John Wick's dog is for the sake of better mascara or a cure for cancer. The animal rights ethic says we do not have the right to cause pain and suffering to another living being, no matter what our end goal is. Unlike the utilitarian ethicist, the animal rights ethicist says that not only should John Wick's dog not be killed in an intensive farming system, John Wick's dog shouldn't be killed for human consumption at all. It is very easy to say that from an animal rights ethic, no, you should not kill John Wick's dog. I'm putting the confusingest one here in the middle, and I'm aware that confusingest isn't even a word, but I'm trying to like ease you into how confusing it's going to be. It's not even that confusing, it's just a little more complex and multifaceted than the others. So I thought I'd stick it right in the middle, where hopefully the first two started giving you a sense of like what these ethical perspectives are all about, and then we'll end with the final two that are a little more clear cut again. So it's like a clarity sandwich with the confusing, mushy parts in the middle. Relational ethics are all lumped together under one label when they are what A.E. Dilemma itself describes as really a group of associated views with an emphasis on the ethical importance of relationships. So actually, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to coin my own terminology to split the related group of relational ethical perspectives into two major factions. That's right, I'm just going to invent new terminology, sitting here dressed as John Wick in drag, being watched by a big fat elderly rat. Hi, Maple. This is the best way to introduce new terminology into the ethical lexicon. Right, Maple? Should we have a sidebar about it? So I'm thinking that I'm gonna call it reflective relational ethics and proximity relational ethics. Does that sound good to you? Yeah? You're into it? Okay, perfect. Let's do it. Thank you for your help. Let's start with what I am now going to call the reflective relational ethical viewpoint, which I'm defining as the subsection of relational ethics, which says that the reason we should treat animals well is because of the way it reflects back on our relationship with humans and how we treat them. This view says that if we get into a habit of practicing callous cruelty towards non-human animals, we may then treat humans that way as well, or create arguments to justify our cruelty towards animals, which can then be used to justify cruelty towards vulnerable groups of humans. And that's a bad thing. Therefore, in a reflective relational view, you should not kill John Wick's dog, not because it's necessarily bad to kill John Wick's dog in and of himself. It's because if we go around shooting John Wick's dog, we might think it's okay to start shooting people too. I'm not sure, but I think this may be the plot of one of the John Wick movies, or all the John Wick movies. Incidentally, I've never seen a John Wick movie. The other side of the relational ethics viewpoint, I'm now going to call the proximity relational view. This is more about the bonds and relationships that have forged between humans and the non-human animals who live in proximity to us and as our allies and companions. Now, note that I'm talking about emotional proximity and partnerships to whatever degree you believe those exist between humans and non-human animals, and not physical closeness. Cockroaches and spiders might be right next to us, but the proximity relational viewpoint would actually probably have no problem with us squishing them because there's no alliance between humans and bugs. They're not considered an animal that is emotionally close to us, even though physically they might be right under our feet, but like literally they could be right under our feet, and that's like fine.
Okay, I thought it was pretty clear from context that I was saying this is fine from the perspective of proximity relational ethics, but my mom was like, no, people are going to think you squish bugs. So then I put that little thing over the boot to make it very clear that I'm not saying I endorse that, but my mom still didn't feel that was clear enough. So I do not squish bugs. Anyway, here's another example of a relational viewpoint statement.
The example on AE Dilemma is the mice and rats are pets. See, I said, mice and rats are pets. Freudian slip there. On the AE Dilemma, one of the examples given under relational ethics is rats and mice are pests, and therefore we owe them nothing. This same proximity relational view would say that we have no ethical obligations to squirrels living in the forest or to the farmed animals who end up on our plates, because that is the established relationship essentially between humans and those farmed species. Now, where this may change is if an individual human is a caretaker of individual animals of that species. So for example, a shepherdess might have an ethical obligation to the flock under her direct care, because there is an emotional proximity and a relationship between that shepherdess and those sheep. But on the whole, humans and sheep don't have any kind of special relationship or alliance. As you can tell, this viewpoint is kind of subjective. It's definitely one that feels the most based on gut instinct to me. We shouldn't hurt animals who we have a close relationship with, which is going to change drastically from culture to culture, for example, or your own personal perspective. I happen to have a close physical proximity to rats and a close emotional proximity to rats, even though they are literally listed as the example of animals we shouldn't care about under relational ethics. It's kind of a more intuitive feelings-based ethical perspective. So to help kind of make sense of this one and break it down, let's take the American perspective, because Americans love centering ourselves. According to USDA APHIS, in 2019, American labs self-reported holding 181,993 guinea pigs for testing.
Okay, So I try to be very careful with my language and err on the side of being too conservative with my claims, because I've noticed animal rights activists seem to be perceived as exaggerating their claims or making things up, creating this perception of hysteria that allows all claims to be dismissed. So I said animals held for testing because the form that labs submit to APHIS/USDA includes all animals held in a facility, whether or not they were used in research that year. But when I was editing and I heard myself say that, it just sounded really gross and clinical to me. One of my pet peeves when discussing issues of animal welfare is all the euphemisms, such as saying subjects were terminated at the end of an experiment when they mean killed, and that animals are processed for food when they mean, again, killed. Held for testing made it sound like maybe all the guinea pigs were given tiny number 2 pencils and were evaluated to see if they should be placed in the gifted and talented program for algebra, when I wanted to say that most of these animals were experimented on. So I decided to go back to APHIS/USDA to see if I could find the exact number, and lo and behold, the exact number of animals actively used in experimentation is the number I gave. 181,993 is the number from the columns excluding animals held but not used. So all 181,993 of those guinea pigs were in fact used in 2019. And as an apology for inadvertently minimizing the suffering of guinea pigs, I'm going to add for them that 46,359 of those guinea pigs were in experiments involving pain, and of those, 19,965 were not given pain drugs. Now, whether or not this number is acceptable to you all depends on your ethical perspective, which is what this video is actually about. So let's get back into it.
Now, when you look up guinea pig in the dictionary, the second definition is something along the lines of any subject of any experiment. So from the proximity relational view, this is probably fine. Testing on guinea pigs is within the bounds of what our relationship with guinea pigs is. Humans use guinea pigs as test subjects. It's literally in the dictionary. However, Americans, as a general rule, seem to love dogs. Dogs are accepted as not a pest animal in our culture, and we in general tend to think of us as having a special relationship with dogs. They've been our companion animals for hundreds of years. They're sometimes known as man's best friend. So from the proximity relational ethical viewpoint, it's going to be more troubling that in that 2019 report, 58,511 domestic dogs were held
Experimented on.
Now, that's not even 1/3 of the amount of guinea pigs who were held
Experimented on.
in that year. But again, our relationship with guinea pigs that has been established says that's within the realm of their use. Our relationship with dogs, as historically our companions and best friends, means that we shouldn't be using them in that capacity. When it comes to a proximity relational ethic, both because of the history of our relationship with the species as a whole and the bond and relationship between individuals, you should not kill John Wick's dog. The next viewpoint is kind of weird to try to shoehorn into this particular scenario, but that's the premise of this video and I've committed to it, so here we are and I'm gonna try my best. And that is the respect for nature viewpoint. The respect for nature. Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got myself into this situation. And by situation, I mean framing. Well, it all started when my beloved rat Maple wouldn't get out of my business while I was filming. We really...
Yeah, do you want to say hi to Maple? That's Maple. Yep, there she is. Are you scared of Maple?
At one point, she drank from her water bottle for 2 whole minutes, which is her right, she's in her home. So I paused my talking and made up little dances to the beat of the water bottle clicking, thinking that she was in frame. When I realized she wasn't, I decided I'd capture the water bottle next time she drank for insert shots. I thought I had reset the camera in the exact same place and position when I resumed filming. Instead, I got this. I sure hope it was worth it.
The respect for nature view of ethics says that we should respect nature. So this may include prioritizing biodiversity and conservation and ecosystems over individual animals. For example, an animal rights viewpoint might say that invasive species culls are unacceptable because they're killing healthy animals, while a respect for nature viewpoint may say that such culls are necessary. This respect for nature viewpoint includes the belief that humans shouldn't overly meddle in the genetics of animals. So we have a lot of problems with breeding for extreme phenotypical features in domestic dogs, for example, breeding them to have really long backs and short legs that cause chronic back problems, or sloped backs that cause hip dysplasia, or brachycephalic, aka little flat-faced dogs who have extreme difficulty breathing. So if John Wick's dog was one of those, it would definitely be considered unethical from a respect for nature viewpoint to let him reproduce. Does that mean we should kill him? No, probably not. I don't think it means that. I guess if John Wick's dog were in some sensitive ecosystem wreaking havoc on local species and causing countless animal deaths in a space where those wild animals being killed is going to have a ripple effect on destroying entire ecosystems, and there was no other way to remove him and stop that destruction of nature, then yes, you could kill John Wick's dog in the respect for nature ethics viewpoint, but most of the time I'm gonna say no. Respect for nature says you should not kill John Wick's dog. Or I guess it doesn't even say you should not kill John Wick's dog, but it doesn't give you justification to do it. It's kind of just, it's not really applicable in this situation, but here I am, and so I'm trying to make it applicable to this situation, because that's the premise of the video. But it's kind of a stretch. And finally, Contractarian ethics. This is the ethical viewpoint I was discussing in my Cedar the Goat video when I came up with this comparison in the first place. Contractarian ethics dictates that morality and ethics are based on our societal obligations to one another, that humans enter into societal contracts with one another that determines the rules for how we should all treat each other. Now, non-human animals can't enter into these contracts. That means that they don't owe us anything ethically or morally, but we don't owe them anything ethically either. However, we do have contracts with our fellow humans, and if those humans care about an animal, then hurting that animal ends up violating our societal contract with that human. So let's talk about the Cedar the Goat example. What happened was a young Shasta County girl had this goat named Cedar that she raised and then decided she really cared for and didn't want him to be eaten. He was then sold and eaten anyway. People who were very upset, even when they themselves are often consuming farmed mammals, are probably employing contractarian ethics. It hurts their hearts that this little girl's heart was hurt. You may notice some overlap in this particular scenario between contractarian ethics and proximity relational ethics, because it's about the relationship between the girl and the goat. The big difference between contractarian ethics and proximity relational ethics is proximity relational ethics is saying we have an ethical obligation to these non-human animals that we are close to in one way or another. Whereas contractarian ethics is not saying, oh, if this goat, Cedar, has a close relationship with this little girl, then the goat doesn't deserve to die. It's saying we still really don't care about the goat, but the fact that this slaughter of the goat hurt the little girl who we have the societal contract with, that's the problem through the lens of contractarian ethics.
One of the sample statements on AE Dilemma for the contractarian view is, I need to treat animals well enough for them to suit my purposes, but I don't think it is worthwhile doing any more than that. So that means animals for human consumption? Fine. Animals in factory farms for human consumption? Also fine. Go crazy. Test on animals for cancer. Test on animals for makeup. Just have a great time. And, yeah, I don't really know what to say about that.
So, contractarian ethics does not care about John Wick's dog whatsoever. He does not matter. He is not important. However, contractarian ethics says that we have a contract with John Wick, and John Wick is going to be very, very upset if you kill his dog. And I know this even without having seen the John Wick movies. So according to contractarian ethics, you should not kill John Wick's dog. Not for the sake of the dog, but for the sake of John Wick. Final tally. Should we kill John Wick's dog? Utilitarian ethics. Depends on if it's a means to the end. Animal rights ethic. Absolutely not. Reflective relational ethic. Absolutely not. Proximity relational ethic. Also no. Respect for nature ethic. Not actually relevant, but probably not. I mean, maybe if he's wreaking havoc, I don't know. Let's just say no. Or yes, I don't know. Contractarian ethics. Absolutely not. Contractarian ethics if John Wick is dead and leaves behind no bereaved human loved ones who have any special attachment to his dog. Sure, go for it. So there you go. I hope you now feel confident that you as an individual can determine whether or not you feel morally comfortable in killing John Wick's dog. And that you have a better understanding of the reasons that various humans may feel comfortable and justified or not in using animals for their own means in various situations. Rocky. As I dropped earlier, I have never seen any of the John Wick movies, and now I kind of never want to. Like, I want to just consider myself like an expert on the hyper niche world of should you kill John Wick's dog without knowing anything about the John Wick movies. But if you think I should watch them, or if you're highly invested in this running gag and think I should never watch them, please let me know in the comments. I highly recommend you use the aedilemma.net quiz
And then share your results down in the comments. See, that's such a better call to action than telling me whether or not I should watch the stupid John Wick movies. This is why I'll never go viral.
Use the aedilemma.net quiz as a useful tool to examine your own biases, your own perspectives, where you may find yourself being kind of in a state of cognitive dissonance or hypocrisy. As always, I have no association with AE Dilemma. They don't know who I am. I promise I'm not being paid for this. No one is paying me to advertise to my
55 followers.
Aw, 66? You guys! 73.
I'm now at 184, which is both a testament to how amazing you guys are and also how long it takes me to edit these videos.
You are multiplying like a native species of rabbit who we have an ethical obligation to in the animal rights ethic, respect for nature ethic, and reflective relational ethic, but not necessarily in the contractarian, utilitarian, or proximal relational ethic. Follow and subscribe so there can be, nope, that's the same thing. Please subscribe so there can be even more of you native species of bunnies, and like and comment for engagement so that Rocky and I aren't just like yelling into the void. Although it's fun enough that that's fine too, I don't really care.
And one last thing.
I realize that if you're watching this out of context, you may think that I have a pet rat, and I want to clear up that misconception right now, because you should never have a pet rat, in that you should never have a pet rat. So here's the deal. I have a pet rat named Maple,
who loves being up in my business, even during the day when rats are usually nocturnal. I have a pet rat named Stella, who's a little baby. I have a pet rat named Olive, who's a big chunk. And I have Angel, who's a beautiful silver mane. And this is 4/5 of my mischief. You can see them there. We have Stella, Olive, Angel, Maple. And then there's a little baby, also Stella's age, named Rosella. But Stella is doing pretty well in terms of being comfy coming out of the cage. Rosella, we're still working on it. And as always, I'm not gonna stress my rats out just for the sake of a video, because that wouldn't be in line with my animal welfare ethic. But these three jerks, I just wanted you to see Maple does not live alone. She just begs for attention alone.